Okay, so welcome to Midweek Manna. And today we have Vicky doing the invocation and welcome. We have a really great program lineup for us. We have Suzanne Cormus and Joe going to be sharing a health minute with us today. And we have Brother James continuing the America's Foundation. So Vicky.
Shalom and welcome to all. This is from the book of Jeremiah, Jeremiah 11, 1 through 6. The word that came to Jeremiah from Yahweh, saying, Hear ye the words of this covenant, and speak unto the men of Judah, and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and say thou unto them, Thus saith Yahweh, Elohim of Israel, Cursed be the man that obeyeth not the words of this covenant, which I commanded your fathers in the day that I brought them forth out of the land of Egypt from the iron furnace, saying, Obey my voice and do them according to all which I command you. So shall ye be my people, and I will be your Elohim, that I may perform the oath which I have sworn unto your fathers, to give them a land flowing with milk and honey, as it is this day. Then answered I and said, So be it, O Yahweh. Then Yahweh said unto me, Proclaim all these words in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem, saying, Hear ye the words of this covenant, and do them. Jeremiah 17, 7 through 10. Blessed is the man that trusteth in Yahweh, and whose hope Yahweh is Yahweh. For he shall be as a tree planted by the waters, and that spreadeth out her roots by the river, and shall not see when heat cometh. But her green leaf shall be green, and shall not be careful in the year of drought, neither shall cease from yielding fruit. The heart is deceitful above all things, and desperately wicked. Who can know it? I, Yahweh, search the heart. I try the reins, even to give every man according to his ways, and according to the fruit of his doings. Abba Yahweh, we come before you tonight, and we honor you and give you glory and praise to your name, and in thanksgiving for the perfect atonement of your Son, Yehoshua, our Messiah. We're coming up on the season of atonement and Yom Teruah and all of the winter feasts. As your word from the prophet Jeremiah told us to seek out the old paths and to walk therein. And may we all have our heart and mind set upon this goal, Father, that we may, through true teshuvah, repentance, seek your forgiveness and walk there in those old paths of your righteousness and in the covenant of your Son, everlasting and holy in every way. Bless everyone here this night, right now, and those who will see this in the future. And we invite your Ruach HaKodesh, your Holy Spirit, to teach us your word, your will for all of us, to open our hearts and our minds to learn of the old paths and to walk there. Protect your people, Abba Father, from the schemes of all the enemies, and heal your children and encompass them with your perfect shalom. And feed us in the wilderness with your manna from heaven, Yehoshua, the bread of life. I ask these small things humbly and with pleading. And may your kingdom come and your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. In the precious name of Yehoshua, our Messiah, amen. I also wanted to read a poem I found today in an old study notebook of mine. It's a short little poem about edification. There's no title to it and no name to it. It's anonymous. But this is about Edification. I saw them tearing a building down, a group of men in a busy town. With hefty blow and lusty yell, they swung with zest, and a side wall fell. I asked of the foreman, "Are these men skilled, the kind you would hire if you had to build?" And he looked at me and he laughed. "No, indeed. Unskilled labor is all I need. Why, they can wreck in a day or two what it had taken builders years to do." I asked myself as I went my way, which of these roles have I tried to play? Am I a builder with rule and square, measuring and constructing with skill and care? Or am I the wrecker who walks the town, content with the business of tearing down? Edification is not about us, it's about others. 1 Corinthians 10. Edification is not what we profess, it's what we pursue. Romans 14. Edification is not about how much we know, it's about how much we care. 1 Corinthians 8:1. Knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. Edification is not about our wisdom, it's about His Word. Acts 20:32. Thanks, y'all, for listening, and welcome.
Hey, hallelujah. Thank you so much for that opening, Sister Vicky. And yeah, wow, very instructive. That poem, there's a lot in there to think about. Are we building up or are we tearing down? Something to really do some introspection on, especially as we enter into the days leading up to the Day of Atonement. And so anyway, thank you again for that. And so at this time, we have had Suzanne and Joe Cormus before a few times to share their heart. They have a heart for the health of the body and for the mind and the soul. They want to see healthy individuals all around, not just in one way, but in all ways. And I know they both have a heart for the Father. And so I would like us to welcome them again, and they're going to share their heart again with us. So Joe and Suzanne.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Vicki. That was amazing. Joseph is online with me as well. Today with our health talk, we're going to talk about the health benefits. Your digestive system starts in your mouth. And so I want to talk about oral hygiene and what the proper things to do for your mouth to make sure that you're getting the proper enzymes. Do you realize that the saliva in our mouths is what creates the enzymes and the hydrochloric acids for our stomachs? And so if we take good care of our mouth, we're going to be able to take good care of how our digestive system works better. And so it's just some simple solutions, and I like home remedies in all different directions. And so, Joseph, are you there so you can say hi? And where are you at? Is he on? And I wanted just to make sure that I'm on board with where my husband's at today.
Yes, dear, I am here. I had to change screens to unmute. Yes, I'm here.
Oh, good. And thank you. I see that now, and how that all comes together, because I don't always see myself in how the Zoom call actually works. Can you see me like I can see your picture?
Yes, I can see you.
Okay. And so I wanted to share some simple things. You know that a simple toothbrush, this is from the dollar store. And if you can see this, the dollar store actually, this simple solution has a tooth scraper in it, a mirror for your teeth, the toothbrush, as well as a pick for the teeth. And so there, now I can see myself a little bit differently. But to making the long story short, I like to scrape my teeth or scrape my tongue, a tongue scraper. And this tongue scraper is a key part of the bacteria and all of the candida that sticks in your mouth. So there's always a way of it, just like the bottoms of your feet and the palms of your hand, is a map to the whole body. The inside of your tongue is called tongue mapping. And so you can Google tongue mapping and you look at your own tongue in a mirror and say, oh, look at the crack down the center of your tongue, or look at the waves on the side of your tongue. And then the tip of your tongue has a lot to do with your heart. The center of your tongue has a lot to do with your liver and your digestive tract. And the waves in the side of your tongue has to do with how your body is absorbing back into your small intestine. So that saliva glands in your mouth. So every bite needs to be chewed at least 20 times before you swallow it. And the blessing is to make sure that we're stimulating. So I'm encouraging people to brush their teeth twice a day. Brush your teeth whenever you feel like, and floss your teeth whenever you feel like your teeth have anything stuck in between it. So your bite's always biting correctly. So toothpicks aren't always the best thing, but they're not the wrong thing. But never harm the gum line by always making sure you get in between your teeth, but brushing your teeth. A toothbrush needs to be replaced every 3 months. Believe it or not, try to throw the toothbrush away or use the toothbrush for something other than your mouth because of the bacteria that it carries from too long of using it. And so then it has the right stroke on the teeth. And you brush your teeth, you brush them down and you brush them sideways so that you're always going up with your teeth and pulling them away from the gum line in. And so the bottom teeth go up and the top teeth go down, and making sure that you actually brush the gum line on the inside as well as the gum line on the outside of your mouth. And underneath your tongue is another blood supply that goes to many different sources throughout your blood-brain barriers of the body. So it's amazing how God pulls this all together. I like to do oil pulling with coconut oils. And this is the unrefined virgin coconut oil. And it's just 1 teaspoon. Some people like to say it's a tablespoon. If you can get a full tablespoon, that's 2 teaspoons into your mouth. I put 1 teaspoon of coconut oil in my mouth and the saliva starts working. And then you try to hold it in your mouth for 10 minutes. It's crazy, but I try to do this once a week. Oil pulling pulls all the other chemicals, stimulates all the insides of your mouth, and making sure that the hydrochloric acid works. Do you know there's inhibitors to your enzymes are happening if you're not getting the saliva glands to work with your digestive system to work, making sure it breaks down the amylase and the peptides and all the things that the body needs to help break your food down properly. Do you know your stomach acid is supposed to be there so that it kills the parasites, the viruses, and the bacteria? Acid in your stomach is so strong that it's going to burn a hole right through my kitchen table. It's supposed to be there. Your stomach is your thickest skin of your body because it's so powerful to be able to make and hold the acid that it needs to break down all your animal proteins. Your animal proteins in your stomach is the only place that it gets broke down. Once it gets to your small intestine, it then goes, if it's not broke down properly, you eat something. I'm going to talk about chicken. You chew your chicken and you chew it well, and making sure that every bite is a baby food before you swallow it. Because once you swallow it, you can't taste it. So savor the flavor as long as you can. The slower you eat your food, the better it is for your digestive tract. It takes 20 minutes for your stomach to actually register back to your brain that your tummy's actually full, that your stomach's full. So don't be in a hurry to eat. Make sure that you fill your plate and wait before, when you're finished eating, wait before you fill it up again. Sometimes our eyes are bigger than our stomach, and that all plays that part. I was going to show you another form of a tongue scraper here that I've also used, and it's a copper wire that it scrapes the tongue. So you put it in the back of your throat, or the back of your throat, and then you lay it on your tongue, and then you scrape it forward. Don't brush your tongue, but scrape the tongue is a more important way of getting rid of toxins and bacteria in the mouth. Digestive systems makes that all happen. I do have a list of things I wanted to go over that are beneficial to coconut oil, because you spit the coconut oil out after you hold it in your mouth, swish it around, go between your teeth. It's great for that periodontist diseases. Coconut oil has been proven to get rid of that, but coconut oil has a lot of other benefits as well. Joseph, did you have anything else that you wanted to add to this before I go over the coconut oil benefits?
I was hoping that maybe you would share what Darren Schmidt and his blend. I want to say using water and a certain amount of salt, and maybe even from my memory, I think it was hydrogen peroxide with the water pick.
Well, and there's a whole list of that one. You know what? He does hydrogen peroxides and the baking soda. And what else was in that? Because I don't have that handy. I actually forgot to grab it. But that's something that we can make sure that we put in the notes later.
Yeah,
for
maybe just to emphasize the
water pick's another great solution to get in between your. So I see that we use a liquid parasite cleanse that you gargle with and actually swallow, and you hold it in your mouth and then it's great for your sinuses, your teeth, your ears, and all of the hidden parasites that can be within the mouth lining as well. So there was another one that you wanted to share though, Joseph. What was
I really like, and probably others on the call here tonight have heard of, it's commonly being known as it's chlorine dioxide, and how that results is sodium chlorite mixed with, I think it's 28% sodium chlorite mixed with 50% citric acid, or others are even using hydrochloric acid. Suzanne has a kit with the hydrochloric acid, and you mix it 1 drop per 1 drop, and it goes through a chemical reaction, releasing the chlorine dioxide. And the kit that I use, if I put 3 drops of the sodium chlorite into, I use a clear, like a shot glass, a whiskey shot glass, because it's radiused on the bottom, and then add same 3 drops of the citric acid, and in a matter of just 30 seconds to a couple minutes, it goes through a chemical reaction. It starts to turn a little bit yellowish, and then yellowish orange. And if you were to smell it, you can smell the chlorine dioxide coming off of this chemical reaction. So after about 1 or 2 minutes worth of reaction time, I then fill the rest of the shot glass up with water, and then I put about half of that in my mouth, and then I brush my teeth with it. And then I usually spit it out. And then after rinsing my mouth out with brushing, then I'll take the remaining ½ ounce and then swish that and gargle it and then swallow the last part. That's what I've been doing lately. And boy, I really think that it's quite a bacterial kill off in your, for good oral health. It's a good bacterial kill off. I thank you for asking me about that, Suzanne.
Yeah, I'm real impressed with how well Joseph can pull all of those chemical sources together, where I stop and actually cheat and do this is from Melaleuca, is my tooth polish, and it's all in there. And then the essential oils from the cinnamon bark to tea tree oil, as well as myrrh, is in this tooth polish. And I just put 1 little bitty drop on a toothbrush and use it morning and night. And so my husband goes into his chemistry solutions and makes things happen, where Suzanne just puts a dab on my toothbrush and makes things.
And even the silver spray that you've been using, the 4 ounce bottle from Avini, very powerful nano silver as well.
That nano silver is amazing as you spray it into your mouth, for anything from cold sores to canker sores to even sore throats. And within just a few minutes, the sore throat and bad things are gone at the same time. But do you realize it's the heavy metals in our blood system as well as in that inhibits the enzymes from working properly? So the more that we can get rid of those heavy metals, and so the cell defender is the Z-Lite combination, and it's tasteless, and I put it under my tongue 4 times a day, and every time I use the bathroom, it has strengthened my bladder by using this cell defender. So I keep it in my pocket, and so it's just a little bitty bottle, and I'm sorry I don't have it handy right now, but I put it underneath my tongue, and it's just 5 drops to a time. And I am just always reminded at how blessed I am and how much better my whole body system works by pulling the heavy metals and the environmental toxins out of our body.
Could I ask a question real quick here, Suzanne?
Yes, please do.
With regard to, getting rid of the bacteria with these various methods that you're talking about, is there, could potentially somebody either even lessen or even perhaps even not even have to deal with a dentist if they did this kind of thing regularly? Because I've heard that cavities are it's like a bacteria or something. Something can be killed that can be rooted out. What do you have to say about that?
Well, it has everything to do with your microbiome of your digestive tract. So if you have bad breath, it has everything to do with what your gut flora is talking about. So you're less apt to have bad breath if you can get your microbiome and your gut floras in proper balance. And so that's part of pulling the heavy metals out, getting rid of the parasites. What you're doing is getting the parasitic issues out of the body, because parasites can hide in different orifices of even in your mouth and in your sinuses and in your ear canals and behind your eyes. And it's crazy how parasites hide in a lot of different ways. And so Daryl Schmidt, am I saying that right, Joseph? From the focal
Darren Schmidt,
from your focal infection from the collarbone up, we might have to share that link as well of that wonderful video. And it's about a 45-minute video, but it's well worth the information, and how you can put drops of this parasite cleanser number 3, para 3, in your ears straight, but I dilute it when I gargle with it, and I dilute it again when I snort it up my nose to get all of those toxins out. So good question. And I love the whole idea of seeing the dentist less, and less cavities are an issue. In the last 20 years, I haven't had any cavities, but I am very diligent about not having raw sugars in my diet. The sweetest things that I incorporate into my daily diet is the fruits and vegetables that have natural sugars. So it's all falling together and making a strong, healthy gut microbiome, and not the sugars that are going to create bacteria and attract parasites, because parasites crave those kinds of sugars, the toxic ones.
Okay, well, thank you so much, both of you guys, for sharing. Let's take a couple questions. Does anybody have any questions? Raise your hand, please, for either Suzanne or Joe.
I like Vicky's question about the 35% food grade peroxide and hydrogen peroxide. And I have a whole paperwork on that one as well for your teeth. And that's a smart thinking with everything. And of course, that's diluted, and it's only putting 3 drops into a cup of water and gargling and swallowing it too. That's amazing solution. Some people even brush their teeth and use that as a mouthwash, making it all come together.
Okay.
So Vicky's question was.
Fantastic. One other question. We have one chance for one more question. Anyone else would like to ask Suzanne or Joe? Do we have another question?
if I may add, Gregory, talking about Darren Schmidt and the importance of good teeth health and oral health that Suzanne's saying. Darren Schmidt talks about this book written by he's holding up this blue book, and he says this information was written about 100 years ago. Weston A. Price wrote about this information, and what Darren goes over, that he had some patients that one had a tooth infection, and the tooth infection was draining down and was causing lung cancer, or no, not the lungs, it was breast cancer. And another woman had an ear infection, and that lymphatically was draining down into her lungs, and she was on a transplant list to have her lungs transplanted. And with the para 3 that Suzanne was talking about, put that in her ears and probably gargled it. And if she would have had the lungs transplanted, the ear infection would have reinfected the lungs. And that's what he says, the collar up focal infections. Focal infection means you have an infection somewhere, but it's showing up somewhere else in the body. Thank you, Gregory, for letting us share.
Well, thank you so much. That's quite an encouraging message. It sounds to me like she got rid of that, and it helped her significantly with that treatment protocol. Yes. Okay, very good. What I'd like to do for our audience out there, I'm going to put Joe and Suzanne's contact information back up for us so that you guys can reach out to them. Those of you in the audience, either online or in the recording later, you'll see these numbers here, 989 area code 560-2777. That's a cell number. You can text that number. We also have faith-works 806@hotmail.com. And also note that Suzanne and Joe, this clinic is 806 North State Street, 806 North State Street, Stanton, Michigan, 48888. So any of you out there in our audience, whether on YouTube, whether on Facebook Live, please reach out to them for your health needs. I know that they have so much to offer the body of Messiah. And so at this time, we are going to move on to our music special, and then we will have America's Foundation's Brother James Kramer will be presenting that. So for now, our music special.
I'm not going to pretend that I've never done wrong, never sinned, but rather I know I've grieved your spirit, 'cause I drove the nails into your hands. I took the whip and made your scars, but I won't forget what you said while you died upon the cross. Oh, Father, forgive them, for they know not. Forgive me, oh yeah, for you know my sin. I come on my knees to you, my hell, I repent, 'cause I drove the nails into your hands. I took the whip and made your scars, but I won't forget what you said while you died upon the cross. Oh, Father, forgive them for they know not. Oh, let my walls come down. Let my walls come down. Oh, Yahshua, desire only you now. Oh, let my walls fall down. Oh, let my walls fall down. Oh, Yahshua, desire only you now. Oh, I know I've fallen away, but I won't let this life go to waste. 'Cause you're all I desire is you. Oh, all I desire is you, Yahshua. Oh, you're all I desire is you, Yahshua. Oh, you're all I desire is you. 'Cause I know that I drove the nails into your hands. I took the whip and made your scars, but I won't forget what you said while you died upon the cross. Oh, Father, forgive them for they know not.
Okay, and Father, forgive them. That should be our heart as well, that we forgive one another. And this is from Luke chapter 23, verses 33 to 34. And when they came to the place called the Skull, there they crucified him and the criminals, one on the right and the other on the left. But Yahushua said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. And they cast lots, dividing his garments among themselves. And so our master has commanded us to forgive as he has forgiven us. And so as we are coming into the days, we're entering into the Feast of Trumpets and then now into the 10 days of awe for Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. We should especially consider our relationship with our brothers. Is our relationship harmed in some way? Have we said something? Have we done something to harm our brother and sister? Now is the time to humble ourselves. Our Heavenly Father is calling us to make right with our brothers and sisters, especially in these days leading up to the Day of Atonement. And so we very much appreciate that music special. So at this time, we are going to have Brother James again, and he's going to be presenting another one of the America's Foundations, and I believe that I have his PowerPoint here. So let me see if we can get this set here. Okay, I think we should be able to see that now. Let's see if we got the right one here. There we go. All right, Brother James, are you there?
Yes, sir, I am. And greetings, everyone. I hope everyone is having a wonderful evening. I'm going to start out this evening. We want to recall last week when we were finishing up, we were talking about Charles I and the the things that he was doing, which the people themselves were upset about, especially the nobility, and which is why they decided to get rid of him. So as we learned in that last lesson, and I don't have control over my page. I need to go, there we go. So as we learned in the last lesson, King Charles I was forced to sign the Great Remonstrance of 1649 just prior to his being executed, and thus ended the exclusive reign of the monarchy and instituted a parliamentarian republic over the English realm. But it must be remembered that as with all human governments, when one rises to power, the lust for more power is always lurking in the background. And we're going to see some of that in the history that we will go into this evening. So although Charles I had two sons, Charles II, the elder, and James II, it was James who became the next king of England. He was not of the kingly type, though. History has remembered him mostly as a loser. He was on the outs with most of his fellow countrymen because of his Catholic leanings, and the entire family, Charles, James, and their families, were exiled to their mother's homeland in France. Now, while in France, James served in the French army, and he served with such valor that he earned the rank of lieutenant general in 1654. Next. Ultimately, James's brother put an end to his French military career. This happened because James himself teamed up with the Spanish government against the French, and the French no longer felt obligated to shelter the English royal family over that while they were in exile. So the French crown officially sided with Oliver Cromwell, who we learned in the last teaching that he was basically responsible for the execution of Charles I. And Charles II had had enough of this, and he simply made an alliance with France's enemies, the Spanish. This snub cost James his military position, and he was promptly expelled from his old adoptive army. James did not take this well, and he argued furiously with his brother over the executive decision. And it must be remembered at this time that even though James was the King of Scotland and Ireland at this time, he was not the King of England. Charles II was actually the King of England at that very time. So by the next year, King Charles II was back on top in England, and he officially became the King of England once again. With Charles II back on the throne in 1660, James enjoyed the benefit of being the king's brother again, and this led to a scandalous affair with the commoner Anne Hyde, who was the daughter of Charles's chief minister, Edward Hyde. James took his older brother, at least in terms of promiscuity. It took after his older brother in the terms of in promiscuity. He did a lot of running around with other women, and the younger prince had a reputation for being the most unguarded ogler of his time. Apparently, he liked to watch the women, and he kept two influential mistresses, Arabella Churchill, and remember that name Churchill because he plays into English history in our early in our ages, and Catherine Sedley. And although Anne was aware of these mistresses, she remained his wife until her untimely death by cancer at 34 years of age. James's, excuse me, James's religious relations were making the people anxious. By 1677, James agreed to let his eldest daughter marry what a Protestant ally, Prince William of Orange. This was a big mistake for James himself. Despite his efforts, this did little to assuage the public fears about a Catholic king, since James's wife was also Catholic and she was still fertile. His brother Charles II had failed to produce a legitimate heir, which meant James was next in line to the throne, and it was looking like England might have to face its first Catholic ruler in more than 100 years. In 1683, both Charles II and then Prince James became targets of a murder plot to overthrow the royal family and to restore a Cromwellian-style government. What was shocking about this plan, called the Rye House Plot, was that it might have been instigated by Charles's own illegitimate son, James Scott, the Duke of Monmouth. Charles II passed away from apoplexy in 1685. As he left no legitimate children, his brother was now crowned King James II. So now a Catholic king shocked the country. But that wasn't the only bombshell, because Charles had converted to the Roman Catholicism on his deathbed, apparently ceding to his little brother's preferred faith. Soon after James's ascension, his nephew, James Scott, remember he was the Duke of Monmouth, launched the Monmouth Rebellion, again against the newly crowned king. However, it was only one of two rebellions launched against the new regime. This second rebellion was called the Argyll's Rising in Scotland, and the two of them coordinated their rebellions together to make one larger rebellion out of the two. In any case, Monmouth's attempt at a nighttime surprise attack fell flat, and the king's nephew was captured and executed on the 15th of July, 1685. This event would cause James to increase the size of his personal standing armies. That's underlined because we will see when we get to the reading of the English Bill of Rights that this is addressed in that Bill of Rights. The birth of James's only surviving son was treated with a convenient suspicion by the Protestants at court. And James's Protestant daughter, Mary of Orange, did not want to see more Catholics on the throne. In 1688, the Immortal Seven, a group of 7 English Protestant nobles, sent a letter to James's son-in-law, William of Orange, inviting him to overthrow his own father-in-law. With James's wife pregnant, the nobles would not settle for a new Catholic dynasty. Although the preceding documentary by historian Christine Tran reads like a cheap novel, this is important in understanding the what and why of the English Bill of Rights in 1689. A few other historical items we should mention here are the Great Plague of 1665 and 1666, and the Great Fire of London in 1666, which destroyed over 300 acres of London. Now, remember, this is a time when almost all buildings were made of wood. London had grown so fast that buildings were crowded next to buildings. So once the fire started and an east wind was blowing heavily at that time, it nearly wiped out the entire town of London. Also was the wars against France and Spain at this time. All of these things tended to be a drain on the economy of the kingdom. And so Charles had to resort to taxes to cover the losses on these things and to help rebuild London town once again. In fact, the original London Bridge was burnt down at that time. And it must also be noted that under Charles II, we see at that time the colonization of the New World. The exile of James II ended forever any Roman Catholic rule over the British Empire, and thus William and Mary of Orange became the next king and queen of England, and the English Bill of Rights is established. So we'll now take a look at that document, and many of you will notice the similarities to our Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, the grievances listed therein, and those things that we will find in our own Bill of Rights when we get to that in a future lesson. So the English Bill of Rights, 1689, Parliament's victory. This act was the key piece of legislation produced by the Glorious Revolution, which saw the virtually bloodless expulsion and abdication of one king, James II, and the installation of another, William III and Mary. In the Bill of Rights, the parliamentary leaders who had orchestrated this change asserted the supremacy of Parliament over the king in making laws and in raising taxes, the key powers of government, key guarantees. The Bill of Rights also guaranteed a number of other key political and civil rights, including free speech, at least for members of Parliament, the right to bear arms, at least for Protestants, the right to petition the government for grievances, etc. Although social elites, especially the gentry, would long continue to control Parliament politically, they did so in the name of the English people as a whole. And the members of the House of Commons, which dominated Parliament, served as elected representatives of local districts. Thus, the Glorious Revolution marks the end of a true monarchical rule and the advent of a parliamentary or republican form of government, and a shift in the justification for government from divine right to popular sovereignty. Excuse me, the idea that the people themselves are sovereign. And before I go to the next thing there, I want to back up just a little bit there, where we read the free speech and the right to bear arms. Now, this was very important at this time because James and Charles, being Catholic leaning, took away the arms of all Protestants, but all Catholic were allowed to continue keeping their arms. And this caused a lot of problems. It caused a lot of angst in the Protestants because they could not protect themselves from the overbearing Catholics. And this is something that our forefathers seen and recognized, and why it is our Second Amendment. Going back now to the bottom of our page, an act declaring the rights and liberties of the subject and settling the succession of the crown, whereas the Lords, spiritual and temporal, and commons assembled at Westminster, lawfully, fully, and freely representing all the estates of the people of this realm, did, on February 13, 1689, present to their majesties, William and Mary, a certain declaration in writing made by the said lords and commons in the words that are following. And this is the Bill of Rights. Whereas late King James II, by the assistance of divers evil counselors, judges, and ministers employed by him, did endeavor to subvert and extirpate the Protestant religion and the laws and liberties of this kingdom. A, by assuming and exercising a power of dispensing with and suspending the laws and the execution of laws without the consent of Parliament. B, by committing and prosecuting divers worthy prelates for humbly petitioning to be excused from concurring to the said assumed power. C, by issuing and causing to be executed a commission under the Great Seal for erecting a court called the Court of Commissioners for ecclesiastical causes. D, by levying money for and to the use of the crown by pretense of prerogative for other time and other manner than the same was granted for Parliament. In other words, the crown was using their position to override the taxation power that Parliament had at that time. E, by raising and keeping a standing army within this kingdom in time of peace without consent of Parliament and quartering soldiers contrary to law. And you'll see this one comes over into our Bill of Rights. F, by causing several good subjects, being Protestants, to be disarmed at the same time when Papists were both armed and employed contrary to law. G, by violating the freedom of election of members to serve in Parliament. H, by prosecutions of the Court of King's Bench for matters and causes cognizable only in Parliament, and by divers other arbitrary and illegal courses. I, and whereas of late years, partial, corrupt, and unqualified persons have been returned and served on juries and trials, and particularly divers jurors in trials for high treason, which were not freeholders. I, and illegal and cruel punishments were inflicted. M, and several grants and promises made of fines and forfeitures before any conviction or judgment against the persons upon whom the same were to be levied. All which were utterly and directly contrary to the known laws and statutes and freedom of this realm. And whereas the said late King James II, having abdicated the government and the throne, being thereby vacant, his Highness William, the Prince of Orange, whom it hath pleased Almighty God to make the glorious instrument of delivering this kingdom from popery and arbitrary power, did, by the advice of the Lord spiritual and temporal, and divers principal persons of the commons, cause letters to be written to the Lord spiritual and temporal, being Protestants, and other letters to the several counties, cities, universities, and boroughs, for the choosing of such persons to represent them as were of right to be sent to Parliament, to meet and sit at Westminster on January 22nd, 1689, so that their religion, laws, and liberties might not again be in danger of being subverted, upon which letters elections having been accordingly made. And thereupon the said lords, spiritual and temporal, and commons, pursuant of their respective letters and elections, being now assembled in a full and free representative of this nation, taking into their most serious consideration the best means for attaining the ends aforesaid, do, in the first place, as their ancestors in like case have usually done, for the vindicating and asserting their ancient rights and liberties, declare, 1, that the pretended power of suspending the laws or the execution of laws by regal authority without consent of Parliament is illegal. 2, that the pretended power of dispensing with laws or the execution of laws by regal authority, as it has been assumed and exercised of late, is illegal. 3, that the commission for erecting the late Court of Commissioners for ecclesiastical causes and all other commissions and courts of like nature are illegal and pernicious. 4, that levying money to the use of the crown by pretense of prerogative without grant of Parliament for no longer time or in other manners than the same is or shall be granted is illegal. 5, that it is the right of the subjects to petition the king, and all commitments and persecutions for such petitioning are illegal. 6, that the raising or keeping of a standing army within the kingdom in time of peace, unless it be with consent of Parliament, is against the law. 7, that the subjects, which are Protestants, may have arms for their defense suitable to the conditions as allowed by law. 8, that election of members of Parliament ought to be free. 9, that the freedom of speech and debates or proceedings in the Parliament ought not to be impeached or questioned in any court or place outside of Parliament. 10, that excessive bail ought not to be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. 11, that jurors ought to be duly impaneled and returned, and jurors which pass upon men in trials for high treason ought to be freeholders. 12, that all grants and promises of fines and forfeitures of particular persons before convictions are illegal and void. 13, and that for redress of all grievances and for the amending, strengthening, and preserving of the laws, Parliament ought to be held frequently. And they do claim, demand, and insist upon all and singular the premises as their undoubted rights and liberties, having therefore an entire confidence that his said Highness, the Prince of Orange, will perfect the deliverance so far advanced by him, and will still preserve them from the violation of their rights, which they have here asserted. The said lords, spiritual and temporal, and commons assembled at Westminster, do resolve that William and Mary, Prince and Princess of Orange, be declared King and Queen of England, France, and Ireland, and the dominions thereunto belonging. And those present took oath of allegiance and loyalty to the new monarchs. Upon which their said majesties accepted the crown and the royal dignity of the kingdoms of King of England, France, and Ireland, and the dominions thereunto belonging according to the resolutions and desire of the said lords and commons contained in the said declaration. And thereupon their majesties were pleased that the said lords, spiritual and temporal and commons, being the two houses of Parliament, should continue to sit with their majesties' royal concurrence, declare that all declare all and singular the rights and liberties asserted and claimed in the said declaration are the true, ancient, and indubitable rights and liberties of the people of this kingdom. This ends our look into the English documents which helped guide our founders into establishing those documents upon which this nation was founded, and the American Bill of Rights, which were inspired by said documents of England. Next week, we will look at the American Bill of Rights as well as the Declaration of Independence, and we will see and look at these similarities in this Bill of Rights and in the Bill of Rights that our founders drew up. And I would like to also add at this time that after next week's lesson, I will be gone for a couple of weeks as I prepare for Sukkot. So when I do come back, if it is all right with Professor Smith, I will return to the foundations of our country and hopefully go into some of the cost of freedom that our founding fathers had to pay in order to establish one of the best governments, man governments on earth. And with that, I close and hope that you all have enjoyed this series. I will try to answer any questions if you have them. And with that, y'all be blessed.
Okay, thank you so much, Brother James. Another good installment of the history of England and how that history served to create that marvelous document that all of us Americans, we still enjoy many parts of it. But I think it's most notable that all of those things that you were reading, I was thinking to myself, there's so many things the federal government in America is violating. They're violating several principles there.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I'm thinking to myself, my goodness, I mean, it's important for the people to know this because knowledge is power. If you don't know, what your rights are, how can you assert them? So thank you for that. Do we have a question or two for Brother James before we look at our calendar? While we're getting to that, raise your hand if you have one. I want to make note, Brother James, next week we're on the Midweek Manna. Dr. Snyder is going to be preaching, and so we'll have to do the America Foundation when you come back from Sukkot. I think the following after that. But
All right.
we're going to be doing. He's going to be doing it's based on the Dead Sea Scrolls, and he's going to be doing the Feast of Trumpets, Yom Teruah service. I think that's what's scheduled, but we'll pick back up. But anyway, so who has a question for Brother James? Any thoughts? Any comments? Even a lot to think about here, because goodness, there was a lot of things that occurred before our forefathers who came to this country a long time ago. They created that document and it didn't happen in void, as we know. Much of what was going on in England was transferred. All of that knowledge and all the pitfalls and the things, they tried to create something that was balanced, that would make it so that just one person would not have all the power, but that it would be spread out. There would be checks and balances. Go ahead, Brother Joseph. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, maybe James could at least cover this a little way similar to what John Rutan does. And that is, John Rutan has a phrase, and he says, it's the nature of man to want to control and lord over others. I think as Christians, we see, as far as the example that Yeshua Jesus in his life and walk, and especially in his words that he told his disciples, if you want to be great in my kingdom, you will serve. So that sets forth a certain type of mindset. But for those that may not have that type of mindset, there usually is a lording over of other men to control and want to lord over them. Do you have any thoughts, James? I just know that that's something that John has said in the past. Thank you.
Well, I did in one of the slides, I did have something similar to that. And Vicky had posted the very same thing. Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. John Rutan brings that up many, many times. One of the things that we often discuss in our Constitution class is the fact that the first sin was lust. The lust for the power of Almighty Yah. Satan had that lust for that power. That was the original sin. He tempted Eve with that very same lust for power. Surely you will not die. You will become like the Almighty. And he offered her the fruit. So we see that she too was tempted with that lust for power, because as we learned in Constitution class last night, knowledge is power. And so that lust for that knowledge, to know good from evil, was a lust for power, to control, not just control ourselves, which is what we're supposed to be using that power for. But in too many cases, and like we really see in our administration today, it's to control others and take away the rights of others. Now, another thing that we have learned in our Constitution class is they cannot take your rights away if you do not give them away. We must fight for our rights each and every day, each and every moment of the day. We need to be on our toes because in any way that they can, they are going to exercise control over us in one way or another. And I hope that answers your question, Joseph.
Very good. Very good. Baruch Hashem. All right. Very good. So we're going to look forward to another installment of that. And so let's take a look at our calendar here. Let's see what we got on our calendar. Let me get this open here. Go to Yahad events. Actually, I think the better way to do that is just, let's see, where are we at here? Yeah, let's do this one. Okay, and then we'll do this here. All right, now we'll get that open there. Okay, you should be able to see this now. So here we are at the Midweek Manna. Also, I'm going to be starting a new book. We're gonna look into a third. Essentially, it's going into the 4th century, but this is the Panarion of Epiphanes of Salamis, book 1, and we're going to read and discuss several sects. This is basically a guy in the 3rd century who was part of the Catholic hierarchy, the church, at least the Catholic Church as it was forming then. And he was detailing all these different denominations, essentially. And you will find people of messianic understanding in his readings, and we can learn a lot from that, but we can also learn about several of the different kinds of heretical groups that were going on. And there's just much to learn from this. So we did finish our Lilith book, and now we are going to start something new this Friday, 8 p.m. It's going to be at the same room, and we're going to. I think it's going to be a good program. So we got that this Friday, and then we have the Sabbath service coming up. That's at 11. That is at a different room. That's going to be at theyahad.com. Theyahad.com. Okay, and then so we're going to have Bryant Vaughn. I think he's going to be hosting that, and I'll have to see who's on the schedule for preaching. Then also Brother Vaughn on Sunday. This has been a fantastic class. Please consider joining this. This is on Sunday, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. There's the link, www.theyahad.com. That'll get you into the right Zoom room. And we're going to be learning about several of the things in the Epistle of Barnabas, not the Gospel. Remember, the Gospel is a Gnostic heresy. This is a much smaller book, and it almost made it into the canon. And there's a reason some people suppose, well, why didn't it make it into the canon? But it was so close, and it's worth studying. So also, and then, okay, so then we're going to have our Yom Teruah service, and that's going to be Midweek Manna the next week. So we're going to, Dr. Snyder's going to be presenting for that, for all of us, and that is this room here. Okay, and so that finishes our calendar. And so now let's finish up the service. And so we will do the Aaronic benediction, and we will dismiss everyone. And then those who wish to stay afterward can discuss. We'll turn the recordings off. Okay, so the final blessing. Yivarekeka Yahweh, Vayishmareka, Yaher Yahweh Panaveleka, Vikuneka, Yisa Yahweh Panaveleka, Vyasem Leka, Leka Shalom. Yahweh bless you and keep you. Yahweh make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. Yahweh lift up his countenance on you and give you peace in the name of Yeshua the Messiah, Prince of Peace.
The service is finito. Amen.
Amen. Okay, so please take a look at our contact information for those of us who would like to reach out to us. Dr. Snyder can be reached by going to veroyahad@gmail.com. You can reach me here, Shul, at hmisrael.com. Also, we have our local website there, hmisrael.com. This has been a presentation of a New Earth Restoration and Hebrew Messianic Israel. We are together in Yahad. We are cooperating together in ministry, and we are in the fields. The fields are ripe. They are ripe. They're white. It's like cotton is white, ready to be harvested. But the workers are few, so we are asking other workers to co-labor with us and to reap those souls for the Master's kingdom out there. So we thank you again for joining us, and we hope to see you next time. Shalom, shalom.